Good morning. My name is Wendell Nicholson. I'm with the Northeast Church of Christ, and it is my honor to bring to you this Saturday morning Devo. This morning I'm going to talk a little bit about Joseph. You remember the story, and I hate to go into too much detail because it's a very familiar story, but there's some things I want to bring out as we go through. We're going to begin in chapter 42 of Genesis. If you'll remember, when Joseph was 17, he was sent on a mission to go check on his brothers, and the brothers were already upset at him because he was kind of boastful, and he even told them a story about how they were going to bow down to him. So they weren't too happy with Joseph. They decided, we're a long ways from home, Dad will never know. Well, they sold him to Egypt, sold him into slavery. So here he's a young man, teenager, in slavery, and a lot of things happened to him. We're not going to all those things. What we're going to talk about in particular is after, this was after probably, well, it says he was 30 years old when he went into, became the second in charge in Egypt. So that was, several years, 15 years, 12, 13 years that he had been a slave in Egypt. Some things went well with him, some things didn't. But that's not what this is all about. We're going to look in chapter 42. Remember, part of his dream was that there were going to Pharaoh, he interpreted this dream to Pharaoh, that there was going to be 7 years of plenty, and then there was going to be 7 years of famine so severe that they wouldn't remember any of the plenty. And so that has happened. And now they're past the plenty, they're in the 7 years of famine, and there's been 2 years at this point of famine already. And in 42, it says, Jacob learned that there was grain in Egypt, and he sent his sons to Egypt to get grain so that they could live. It was that severe in the whole area. And so here these Canaanite brothers come to Egypt, and we find themselves just like the dream that Joseph had. They're bowing their face to the ground in front of Joseph because he is the one that will distribute the grain. But the important here is in verse 8 of 42, he said, although when they came there to buy food, verse 8, although Joseph recognized his brothers, they did not recognize him. Now, there's a lot of reasons for that. Number one, they thought it was dead, didn't expect it to happen. But I think more important than that, Joseph was royal, and he was dressed royal in Egyptian attire. So that alone might have kept them from recognizing him. Plus, he was 15 years older at this time at least. And so he was a different man. Part of it could have been miraculous lack of recognition, just like the disciples when they were going to Emmaus. Remember when Jesus met them and on the road to Emmaus, they didn't recognize him, even though they just saw him yesterday or the day before, so it hadn't been that long. But that was a miraculous lack of recognition, and then the recognition as he broke bread with them, that was a miraculous recognition. So I don't really think, though, that this is that. It could be. I think it's mostly because Joseph had changed and they weren't expecting to see him. And so anyway, they didn't recognize him, even though he recognized them. Of course, he may also have had a list of people who were coming in to buy grain. And so part of that, he might have been expecting to see them. And they came in to buy grain. He treated them roughly. That's amazing, huh? How would we have treated them? I imagine we would have treated them roughly as well. And he detained them for a while, accusing them of being spies. And finally, he's just detained one, Simeon. He sent the rest of them back home. And Simeon must have been there for a while because they went back home and stayed till they had to have food again. And finally, Jacob told him, says, y'all got to go back to that man and get some food. And if you'll remember, they didn't want to go because one thing they were supposed to do is bring their younger brother, Benjamin. And of course, Jacob didn't want to send Benjamin. But they finally talked him into it. They went back and to buy food, and or to get food at least. You could remember Joseph kept having their money put back in their sacks, and that was another thing. They didn't understand how all that was happening either, and so they were concerned about going back before this man that's probably going to accuse them of being not only spies but now thieves, and he did. But this was all part of the plan, if you will. This lesson, though, is not about the story. There's a lot of stories there. We could spend, in fact, there probably will be lots of lessons on Joseph. But this one is about, verse 8, about the recognition. Just like those brothers did not recognize Joseph because of the time that went by, and that Joseph did recognize them. Have you ever thought about how people recognize you? I would like for people to recognize me. Yeah, by name, that's fine, you know. But more importantly than that, I would like for people to recognize me as belonging to Jesus, being a Christian. And to me, that would be the most important thing. How do people recognize you? I would suggest if they see you as something besides a Christian, you need to rethink your actions. We're not going to enter heaven if we don't let people know who we are. Jesus says, if you're ashamed of me, I'm going to be ashamed of you. Remember how that goes. So we would like to be recognized as Christians. Today I want to ask this question. Are you recognized as a Christian as you walk about? If not, why not? What can you do? How can we help you to be recognized as a Christian? I think it's all found in the book, and we can study that and see how we're expected to live. How can we help you? If we can help you, that would be great. You can look for us on the web. You can look for us at NECFC, that's Northeast Church of Christ.org, and go to the contact page, and you can contact us. And we'll be happy to get with you and help you be recognized as a Christian. Thanks for listening to this, Devo.